Hey guys, I got a bunch of questions from some good friends about the bumper removal. I kind of felt like last time I took the video just kind of smack dab in the middle and decided, hey, some people might have problems with it, so you might as well videotape it. But since I'm going in again just to remove the piping from the stock gearbox that are underneath the headlights, the useless U-pipes, I might as well kind of start all over again from the beginning so that the guys can see every bolt that I remove and kind of what to expect. Besides, just explaining it verbally, maybe seeing it visually will help a little bit. So, let's start. So go ahead and start by removing the nose panel, and you'll see that this is a newer nose panel that has the emblem. And normally with the newer style nose panels, I'm not sure if that started in '91 or not, but they had nose panel like brackets that they put on. So you'd have one bolt here, but then you'd have two more that attach to these two holes. And just to show you guys before you struggle, yeah, that's the old bracket. I have a couple extra parts laying around, whatever. And I'm pro simplification on working on the Z's, and you really don't need that nose bracket. So go ahead and take that off. It's only 4 bolts, and when you take it off, it kind of mounts to the other side of the nose panel. But if you guys are like 90, maybe some 91s, a couple early ones, you probably will not have that, so that's nothing to worry about. So I might as well list the parts. 10mm for the nose panel. Pretty straightforward. Make sure you don't lose these guys. Although if you work on the Z a lot, you get used to losing parts. Nose panels sometimes get stuck, so when you lift it up, for mine, sometimes I have to push down on the front part of the panel and lift up. Some you have to pop up and lift up, but you guys will figure it out. There's 4 pins on the bumper itself that the nose panel just kind of sits on. My camera's not focusing. There we go. And the nose panel just kind of slides on that and then sits back. So you'll have to kind of lift up when you pull that. You'll see since last time I just put some glue stick on the back of a washer and glued it on there, and now I don't have to level out my nose panels. I can just swap them out whenever I want, whatever type I want, whatever. And I also changed a couple things in here, whatever. And while I'm in here today, I'm going to try and wire up the right hand side, driver's side HID ballast like the left side here. And just the wiring for the mass airflow sensor is kind of in the way, so I couldn't get it vertical, and I'm removing these ducts that were from the stock intake box. They're useless. It also helps if you throw back in the bolts so you don't lose them and lose track where they are. It gets pretty common to get the threads mixed up. There's a couple different types here. I'm going to start with the driver's side fender liner, and for these you got one bolt here. It's really hard to see as it's focusing in. And you got one more here, and one more right down there. That's it on the inside of the fender well that you have to remove so far, just for the lining plastic. And for these, sometimes it helps to get your car up on jack stands, or just safely up in the air while you do it, because then if you have stock suspension like I do, your wheels will sag quite a bit and you'll have a lot more room. So for these guys, they're all 10mm, straightforward. I usually like these ratcheting sockets because they're pretty easy to use in tight spaces. Okay, now you got 3 that are on the underside. Let's let my camera focus for a second. There's 1, 2, and 3, and don't be too surprised if these aren't there anymore. It's pretty often for these to get totally fried from scraping on curbs and whatnot. But these are all 10mm usually, unless someone replaced them with 8s or Phillips or whatever. So you'll probably have to get down there and look. And don't be too surprised if half the stuff is missing down here, even on the fender well. So once you get all 3 of these out, try and keep track of which ones these are, because each of these has a different clip style. And so the thread pitches will be different. between the fender wells and some other parts of the bumper, and when putting it back last time that was kind of a pain in the butt trying to figure out which screws were which. So we got the same thing here over on the driver's side fender liner, 1, 2, and 3, and just pop those off, good to go. And then after that, go for the lower 3 on the bumper itself. And you'll notice I think I'm even missing one on this one. Yep, right there. So now I got my 2 screws instead of 3. It should be a middle one. Then the rear 3 for the inner fender. And I just kind of lined them up so you know what's what. For the driver's side quarter light. So get the 2 Phillips heads out. Pull outwards and slide out. And you'll see there's a little notch right there on the bottom. It just sits on the 2 tabs and slides in. And so now we got the connectors, and you'll see it has a little push tab. You need to push in. Sometimes you'll hear a little click, usually not. But make sure you're firmly down and then pull outwards. Sometimes you have to wiggle a little bit. Then check your connectors, see if they have any greenness in them. That would be corrosion. So here we have the lower lip and the lower bumper support bracket, and this is a little metal strip that goes along the bottom of the bumper. You see right here there's one little round circle, and that's where the bolt sticks through. So you got to get under there. It's a 10mm nut. It's just like this. Get all 3 of them, and for the guys who are have a damaged front lip or something like that, this would be kind of a nice piece to get if your bumper is still kind of intact. I think it sells on through the dealership or through Courtesy Parts, same thing, for around 15 bucks or so. I might be wrong on that, so don't quote me, but it'll help you out, pick the lip off the ground for those people that need that help. So I got the last one off. Comes up just like that. And here's what it looks like. It's a long metal strip. There you go. So then your bumper is relatively free from kind of the splash shield sort of stuff. So now we got to get the actual bumper free from the frame. So here's the 2 corner bolts that are holding the bumper to the fender. You see the bottom one I actually just took off. And then there's the top one, which is the easy one. The bottom one I had to use a 6-inch extension, a 90-degree bend, and a 10mm socket. And the top one's just straightforward 6-inch extension. And here's the setup for getting out that hard one. So again, these are the 2 bolts that go here and here on your fender. And those are what they look like when they're out. 10mm heads. There you go. Alright, so now we're back to the fender. So this is already unbolted. Now we got to pull it back, which is kind of a pain in the butt. Usually I use a screwdriver, but I didn't have one. So here you go. Once you pop that, you have access to your next bolt, which is my fingers on it. Camera's starting to focus. There we go. And I'm actually going to leave that one in for now because that's currently going to be one of the last ones holding up the edge of the bumper. Instead, I'm going to go for the slightly harder one so it's easier to remove. And for that, I will say to remove one more extra bolt to make your life a little easier. It's on the inside of the wheel fender, right here. And that'll just give you some more room for flexibility. You'll be able to pull the wheel liner back much more. So after you pull this one out, you'll notice that this bolt's a little different. It's got a higher pitch thread on it compared to the other for the fenders, and just keep track of it. Once that one's out, you'll have a little more room, and you can see you can pull back the fender much further, the fender liner, sorry. And for the first time around, if your bumper's never been removed, I'm trying to get a good camera angle. 1 second. I have to go right where I'm looking. There we go. Okay, so I'm pointing straight at it right now, and there'll be a bolt right there, and what that does is it supports the outside of the fender from bowing out too much. But most of the time, if any bumper removal has gone on, people don't put in that back that bolt. You'll see mine's off. it's totally not worth it. Then after that one's been removed, which I had to use a pretty long extension, here's my least favorite one. So try and get some good light on it so you guys can see it. 1 second. Maybe I got some light on it, we'll see. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, there's no light on it. My hand can barely get on it. So my finger is in there, right there. And that's a pretty far ways in. On the outside of the bumper, that would be right about here. And to get that one, what I use is I use my ratcheting wrench, and this one's got a pretty fine range to it. So when I ratchet, it'll click several times per degree. So I mean, this thing barely has to move, and that's the way I can get that one out, by just doing small turns until it is pretty much spin by fingers. And it helps to get your hand around from here, put your hand on the bolt while you're going and attacking from this side. And I don't really like this one. Yeah. So once you got the screw out, you're going to the last one over on the fender side, and it's real easy. It's just the corner one right here. So just get that out, 10mm, and you're good to go. So the last part you gotta do is to get these 4 bumper support bolts off, and once they're all off, you're good to go. So once you have the 4 bolts off from these 2, then you need to go over on the corner, and for the corner of the bumper, it's actually sitting up on a little bracket, so you have to pull it off. It sits right here, and once that's pulled off and over, you can go around to the other side, do the same thing. So you're clear to remove it. Then you're going to grab the front bumper by the bar in front. You need to lift up while sliding forward, and then you'll clear the 2 bolts on either side. Kind of have to rotate down a little bit too. Right. Okay, so once you're clear, you're free hanging. You gotta pull outwards while lifting up to clear the foam bar, and you're good.